Good afternoon and welcome to the Bob Woodruff Foundation's webinar. This one is titled Supporting Veterans Wellbeing Through Food Security. I'm really happy to see so many people joining us today. My name is Abby Van Coudray, and I'm a program officer here at the Bob Woodruff Foundation. It's my honor to get to moderate this panel today. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. I just want to make sure to extend a warm welcome to everyone joining the call. We're really glad you're able to join us. So for those of you who may be less familiar, just gonna give you a quick overview of the Bob Woodruff Foundation's Got Your Six network. It is the largest non-governmental network of organizations serving our military and veteran community. The network includes over 400 veteran serving organizations of all different sizes, maturity, and focus areas. I'm confident that this content will be helpful for our partners who are boots on the ground serving the military and veteran community. To just intro where we are, I need to give you a preface. BWF planned this webinar months ago, and that was before the recent events that are making this issue so much more urgent. The ongoing government shutdown is disrupting the lives of military families. I just want to level set and say some more things about that before we dive in. Active duty personnel are continuing to serve while facing potential delays in pay. Non-essential services on bases are being scaled back or even just closed. PCS support may be delayed, and SNAP food assistance benefits have been suspended. Meanwhile, federal aid for anti-hunger programs such as food banks have been drastically cut. Military and veteran serving organizations like those our panelists here represent are seeing a greater demand for food support. If I could summarize all that in one sentence, it's just that too many Americans are facing uncertainty about where their next meal will come from. Our hope is that the next hour will provide an opportunity for our panel of experts to share insights and ideas that help us all to address this challenge as best we can. We are so fortunate to have four knowledgeable panelists with us, so let me bring them on screen. First, we have Carrie Herrera. She is an Air Force veteran and the Chief Programs Officer at Operation Stand Down, Tennessee. They run the Operation Commissary program, which offers wraparound supportive services, including rural food distributions across 20 counties, and they're on their way to adding 11 more counties and 2 mobile offices. Next, I have Allison Tebby, the Programs Director at Bastion Community of Resilience. Bastion is an intentional living community for veterans in New Orleans. Their food services include a hot meals program, a food pantry, and a new expanded community garden sponsored by BWF. Next, we have Angela Upshaw. She is the Chief Program Officer at Insight Housing in Berkeley, California. Their Roads Home program for veterans offers outreach, transitional housing, and a community meal to homeless and at-risk veterans in Berkeley, California. And lastly, I have Shannon Razadin. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Military Family Advisory Network. MFAN is a nationwide organization. They use their network and research to detect and respond to nationwide needs. Right now, what that means is they've launched a new food support program. So with that, I think we can just dive right in. We're going to start out talking about the landscape that we're all witnessing. I'd like to start by recognizing the work of the Military Family Advisory Network. BWF is grateful to support MFAN's nationwide grocery support initiative to ensure that military families have access to food and essential items during this uncertain time. So Shannon, could you talk a little bit about the landscape of food security needs from your perspective and also how you've been prioritizing your efforts?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having us all here today to share what we're seeing, share what we're learning, but also, what we need to be able to do more of as this uncertainty, continues forward. So as an organization, we've really been focused on understanding food insecurity in the military community back since around 2019. That has looked like several research efforts to uncover not just what are the numbers, but also what are those underlying factors that lead to food insecurity in the military. And since then, we've had several initiatives that we've launched. We distributed 1.5 million meals through our Million Meals program during the pandemic. Most recently, we've been focused on supporting military families through moves. we found that there was a real pain point that happened with frequent PCSing and making families more vulnerable during those moments. And now, the moment that we're in right now, the shutdown, we know that 1 in 4 military families on a good day is experiencing food insecurity. And so this has really created a perfect storm for a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck and are very understandably nervous about how they're going to put food on the table right now. And so we've launched emergency grocery support. We're incredibly grateful for the support of you all and a variety of other partners who've gotten involved. But we are providing $200 worth of shelf-stable items to military families across the country, as well as a grocery gift card. We received over 50,000 eligible applications in the first 72 hours. And so that goes to show the immense need. And this is coming from a community that is incredibly prideful, and it's difficult often to ask for support. So far, we've served around 6,500 of those households. We are working feverishly to try to raise the funds that we need to meet the moment, while also knowing we're not sure when the government's going to reopen. And so it's a real pain point that we're in right now, but we're grateful for the team leaning in. We're grateful for our partners, and we're going to keep at it.
Terry, what is it like where you are?
So, yep, we're in the same boat, and we have come up with ways to increase our ability to integrate programming, especially those who are seeking not only food, but sometimes they may have to spend money on food and then they can't pay rent or utilities. So that's where our wraparound services come from. So this initiative provides an opportunity to strengthen and amplify our existing programming through Operation Commissary. Currently, 38% of our OPCOM enrolled veterans rely on SNAP benefits. And after connecting with all of those participants, we identified their specific needs, referred them to our internal programs for housing and other forms of assistance. Now, OPCOM, the budget is dedicated exclusively to food-related items. So we have developed a plan to enhance our current food bags and provide grocery gift cards. For veterans who do require rent or utility assistance, that's where our wraparound services team will conduct assessments and connect them with the appropriate resources, whether they be internal or external. So it's all about the case management and finding those who are going to come to us, and we're going to do what we can for anybody who comes through our doors.
Angela, would you say that kind of matches what you're seeing in Berkeley?
Yeah, absolutely. In Berkeley and really across Alameda County, food insecurity remains a serious challenge. I think county data shows like about 11% of residents are food insecure, but that number increases in some neighborhoods to as high as 40%. And for our veterans, the need is especially pressing. I believe there's about roughly 1,600 veterans living here in Berkeley. And we know nationally that veterans experience higher rates of food insecurity, particularly those who are recently housed from homelessness and who are living with disabilities or supporting families. So here at Inside Housing, we see this every day through our meal program, which continues to serve as both a lifeline and connection point to housing and case management. Last year alone, we served over 139,000 meals, which is a reflection of both the rising cost of living, particularly here in the very expensive Bay Area, and the ongoing gaps veterans face even after securing permanent housing. And beyond Berkeley, our team serves 6 other counties: Contra Costa, Solano, San Francisco, Sacramento, San Joaquin, and Amador counties. And there they're providing food assistance to veterans in our housing and supportive service programs, whether through prepared meals or grocery deliveries. And those supports really help to ensure that veterans across our regions have reliable access to nutritious food while they work towards long-term housing stability. And we're really grateful to the support of partners like the Bob Woodruff Foundation that allows us to provide meals to veterans in need. So while the need is great, our approach remains the same: meeting people where they are with dignity, compassion, and a meal that can open the door to lasting change.
Allison, what are you seeing with residents in New Orleans?
Yeah, so we're in a unique situation in that, Bastion is an intentional community of 58 households, over 80% of which are veteran households. And so we now serve dozens of families in the area who don't live on site as we continue to grow and expand our services. But we have daily touches, weekly touches with these same families and really know them quite well. Many of them have been there almost a decade at this point. And so they're pretty frank with us with what's going on in their lives. And just from 2 months ago, we're seeing some of our families who were not financially strapped in the summer. They were doing okay, finding that they're no longer doing okay when it comes to being able to provide what their home needs. We're grateful that they let us know exactly what it is that they need, and that we are in this small community where we can be very responsive to all of these families. But it is very clear that there are resource needs that weren't present. And New Orleans is already a city where you have folks dealing in struggle with getting food, struggle with having fair pay. And so now it just seems to be compounding. And we're thankful that we already had an established food program with Bob Woodruff now going into our 4th year. But absolutely, we are having to pretty rapidly scale up and find additional partners to be a part of this food program, which is one of only, 4 or 5 different programs that we're operating at a given time. And thankfully, we also have social workers and occupational therapists on staff who are able to provide those wraparound services, as were mentioned, to pull in additional resources that can be really individualized. But yeah, I think things are tough right now, no question.
I think we can start out by talking about the different models. Something I really like is that each of you are sort of tackling this issue from a different angle. So your diverse food programming efforts span like just food pantries, mobile food distribution, meal kits, vouchers. I'm wondering if we could talk about which models have proven most effective for your organization, and then just how does that all change once we're in a more acute food crisis like this one. I think maybe we can start with Terry. Operation Commissary offers immediate food assistance with case management services. Is there anything in particular about this work that has been most impactful in the current crisis?
So we have actually, yes, we have Operation Commissary, and we have veterans who are actually enrolled. And just as a little background for those who don't know, with Operation Commissary, we started that because we have so many veterans who can't come to us to get food. And so we are able to deliver meals every week to veterans. And with that said, we also try to do very like multi-models. And this consists of those that come in the door. They may not be enrolled in the program, but we have food for them. We serve weekly meals every Wednesday for as long as I've been here, which is 8 years. We've served Wednesday lunches. We partner with Vanderbilt University and we provide food to them. And so what changes is whenever we do try to get them food, we try to pick it up. We try to like increase our game. Currently, we have a plan. Thanks to Bob Woodruff, we even have an Operation Commissary, which is amazing. And during this time, our amazing development team have gotten us a little bit extra money so that we can put more food in their food bags. We can give them $25 or even more on larger families for their food that is going to cover the SNAP deficiencies. So again, we're doing everything the way we were, but we are picking it up. We're enhancing it. We're making it better. And hopefully, we're going to get to a point where, like Allison said, they're doing pretty good before, and now they're not doing so great. And so we're going to get them through this time, and we're going to be with them during that time. We do other things too. We get Panera that comes in. We feed them Panera 3 times every week, and we've been doing that for about the past 5 years. So we continually think not just for Operation Commissary, but for all of our veterans, and we try to think, how can we help with their food insecurities?
Angela, I know Insight Housing's community meal program is the longest running program of its kind in Berkeley, which is really cool. It spans decades. How do you handle the change in need? And then I'm wondering if you could also talk about sort of how that program is structured. The meal is served at 3 p.m. How important is it, like what time and where food is provided?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And it really connects to our roots here. As you mentioned, yeah, it's spanned decades. We started off with a hot meal. This started back in the 1970s. Back then, it was known as like a soup kitchen. And so that's really where our roots are. It's just an emergency response to the growing number of people experiencing homelessness and food insecurity in Berkeley. And so over the past 55 years, we've grown into a nationally recognized homeless service provider focused on case management and food insecurity, housing insecurity. And with that evolution, the hot meals has remained a constant. Food is really important for everyone. It connects people. It really is that central point that we use when we're trying to engage with people for other services. And so our meals program, it provides 3 meals daily to all of our program participants in our interim and permanent supportive housing programs. And it also includes that community meal, which you mentioned, Abby, that's available to anyone in the community who needs it, anyone who's food insecure. They don't have to be in one of our housing programs to receive that meal. And as you mentioned, it is the longest running of its kind in Berkeley, which just underscores the growing need in our community. And we've seen just a huge increase. I think we had projected about 100,000 meals last year, and we surpassed that by nearly 40,000 meals. And we're on track to even increase that even more this year. And even during the height of the pandemic, we kept the meal service going and just adapted it to be more flexible, offering a to-go option, coordinating with other outreach teams just to make sure that it's available for everyone in the community. And as you mentioned, the timing of that. So we provide, as I said, 3 meals a day to everyone in our programs. And there's a few reasons why this community meal is scheduled at 3 p.m. every day. It predates me a little bit, but from my understanding, one reason is this midday time, it fills a gap that other food resources are not available. You'll see some community organizations and churches that offer a breakfast or a lunch, but that 3 p.m. meal, or what you can call dinner, between lunch and dinner, is a gap, and we see that there's a need there. Additionally, we want to make sure that it's not too late in the day. So over here, we're in this daylight savings time. It gets dark at 5 o'clock. So making sure food is served during the daytime for safety is really important for us. We do have diners who are coming who are still unsheltered. They need to get back to their encampments safely while it's still a safe time to do so. There's also an operational aspect that goes into that because, as I mentioned, we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's a nice gap to allow us to be able to prepare to serve that meal in the later afternoon. And then I think lastly, health and well-being is something that we took into consideration with the timing. We know people's blood sugar gets low and their energy is low when this is their only meal, when they're not eating regularly. And so being able to sustain them through the night before their next meal is something that's really important to us. And so the timing just really works out in that aspect. But great question.
Gosh, there's really so much that goes into it. I would have only guessed like a few of those reasons. Thank you for sharing all of those. Does anyone else want to jump in?
When we began the food program, it was really because of COVID and similar needs that were happening at the time. We reached out to Bob Woodruff, wondering if it was something they'd consider partnering on. And it started as a hot meals program primarily. We hired 2 of our residents. One was an Army chef, one was a public school cafeteria cook who is a military family member. And they cook all of our hot meals, of which there are somewhere around 20 a month. So more days than not of the month, folks can get a hot meal. Some are sit-down meals. We're really focused on building community. We use the phrase community as intervention a lot. All the things, all the benefits that come out of these lasting community connections. And so the combination of hot meals to go meals for people who are working 2 and 3 jobs and don't have an hour to sit down and talk, a weekly pantry distribution for all of the residents where everyone comes at the same time and gets all of their food. We do food education as well. That's some of the ways we pull people in. We'll do a diabetes specific meal, and our chefs will do some education around nutrition or high blood pressure. And the newest thing that we're actually starting this month is a frozen food initiative. We have a lot of veterans with disabilities who live at Bastion or who we serve in the community writ large. And we want them to have these fresh meals. Not all of them, it might not be safe for them to cook alone at their home, even if they would like to. And so we're working with our chefs to basically increase output and have them flash freeze half of what they're cooking so that we can distribute those meals at the weekly pantry distribution as well. So that there's all kinds of ways folks can benefit. And some, some people only come to the pantry distribution. Some people only get to go meals, but it's really a take what will help you approach.
Yeah, and I would just chime in. We're a little bit unique as a national organization and also one that does not have brick and mortar in how we serve families. And so for us, partnerships is really the name of the game. And how can we create situations where we can meet the need, but also meet the need in a way that's scaled and one that is delivered with dignity. I think that all of us have talked in some way, shape, or form about dignity, but with this community, I think that that is especially important. And for us, when we first launched our food distribution work, that looked like us partnering with local food banks and food pantries. Essentially, we brought all the food in through partnerships that we had with national food companies and also built the awareness among military families. But it was important for us to connect military families to resources that are going to be there all the time in between when we do those food distribution events as well. And then more recently, it's been about, okay, how do we create a solution that we can surge with and can surge with us? And so that looks like creating a partnership for us with Emoja, which is a company based out of Houston, Texas. And they are, in a lot of cases, they're packing WIC kits that go to schools, but they also have the capacity to pack other types of meal kits. And so we're putting about a week's worth of groceries for a family of 4 in these boxes, and they have the capacity to turn it on and bring it to scale really fast. And so I think that there are situations here that we've all, I think, leaned into to make 1 + 1 = 3 in a way that can allow us to scale and serve more people in different times, because right now is a really unique time. What we are doing right now is not our forever solution. This is our surge to meet the moment, and we're really grateful for support from Bob Woodruff Foundation through the partnership with NFL and others who have really leaned into this moment and share our belief that this shouldn't happen. Families should not be in this situation day to day, but this is also a compounded situation that makes it so much worse, and we need to do what we can. And so I think that there's always opportunities to work smarter, not harder. And that often happens for us through very intentional partnerships.
I think it's very clear from this discussion that the need for food has increased dramatically in recent weeks. I think my question now is, how do you ensure that people who need the support know that your support is available to them? Could you talk about what are some effective outreach strategies specifically for populations that can be harder to reach, people experiencing mental health challenges, rural veterans, socially isolated veterans? And how do you reach individuals who may not identify as food insecure and are just like hesitant to seeking help to begin with? I think maybe Terry, we can start with you. I'm curious how Operation Commissary tackles outreach. You cover a lot of counties in Middle Tennessee. Could you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So in terms of the crisis, as I said earlier, we personally reached out to all of our actual enrollees and are letting them know that we have a vested interest in their well-being and that we care and that we're engaging with whatever their needs are. But in general, and in this crisis, when we talk about those who may be socially isolated, or maybe they're just not prepared to open up to us, to admit food insecurities or other needs that from our wraparound services, we have a robust outreach program that aligns closely with our Staff Sergeant Fox grant for suicide prevention and risk assessment, and as well as Operation Commissary. As a matter of fact, our Operation Commissary falls under our outreach program. They are bonded. And our dedicated outreach staff regularly visits encampments. They respond to requests from veterans, both locally and in rural areas, who are unable to travel to our offices. We can literally get a phone call from somebody who is just a good Samaritan and say, hey, I saw a veteran on the corner on the highway and they need help. We'll drive out there and we'll see if they need help. That's what our outreach team will do. But in addition to field outreach, we host a variety of engagement events such as LinkedIn Music City, Grit and Grace, which targets female veterans, and other gatherings that promote camaraderie and connection. This includes coffee meetups, axe throwing, happy hours, just anything we can think of to get people to not isolate, to not just be by themselves. On an average, our outreach team participates in 100 events each month, engaging up to 300 veterans a month. And for something for 20 counties, Tennessee only, that's pretty large. And we've learned that many veterans are hesitant to ask for help, and sometimes offering food serves as an important first step in building trust. Our outreach team carries food bags on their outings as a way to provide a quick, no hassle assistance. Like if they have something handy, no questions asked, here you go. So if they see that we're willing to just say, here, you can have this, then they can start a conversation. And it just, it helps engage further that if they're homeless, maybe they're not homeless, but what kind of housing? Do you need rent? Do you need employment? What other supportive services do you need? One of our wonderful wraparound services we have is, for a while prior to about 2 years ago, we didn't have a lot of assistance for families who were homeless when it came to emergency housing while they were trying to find permanent housing. And we were able to sustain a grant. Now we could put families in hotels 1 to 3 months while they're getting the wraparound services, getting their housing found, getting employment found, getting signed up for school. So those are just like really huge efforts, because the first thing you got to do is you got to get a roof over their head so they can decompress and get where they need to be. So whether attending a community event or visiting an encampment, or our ultimate goal remains the same: to connect veterans with the resources they need and remind them that we are here to help.
Does anyone else want to chime in on this?
For us, it comes down to trust, and trust in the organization, trust in our partners, but also we lean into peer-to-peer outreach quite a bit. We find that it's very powerful when military families are hearing about resources from other military families. It really lowers the barrier to entry for so many people, and it's been something that's worked for us. But the trust piece, like that, you can't replace that. And I think, Terry, one of the great things that you all do, I've been to your facility several times, and it's you open yourself up to the community for so many different things, so people don't feel like just by entering those doors you're like a haves versus have-nots. It's more so about community, right? And I think that that's a really powerful and intentional decision that you all have made. And for us, it's about making life better for military families. And it's very simple. And the reality is that if we're putting something out there, your family might not need it, but now you're aware of it and you can talk about it. And that information then gets to other people. And that for us has really, helped us create some virality in these moments, like, the 50,072 hours applying for this support. That's because of that trust. And that is because of that peer-to-peer approach, and that we're able to really reach people who can sometimes, to the earlier point, be harder to reach. But the trust piece really does help us overcome those barriers.
Yeah, for veterans who may be isolated or hesitant to seek help, trust is key. And we focus here on relationship building, like you mentioned, peer-to-peer outreach, and framing food support as something earned through service and not a charity. We've learned that the most effective outreach is really about meeting people where they're at, and we bring food directly into spaces where veterans and community members already feel safe. And like we mentioned, through our community meal program and partnerships with other community organizations and funders and shelters and outreach workers, just being that consistent presence in the community. Because in the end, the food becomes more than a meal. It's a doorway to connection and stability, and hope for people. But I totally agree with what everyone said.
I think you've all kind of touched on this. I hear from a lot of our partners in the network and our grantees that there are a lot of factors that can cause a person to refuse food assistance, even when they have a serious need. I think that's kind of what we're all talking about with trust. So there can be pride, stigma or perceived stigma, mental health concerns, so many other things. That can be really heartbreaking for staff on the front lines who are trying their best to get assistance where it needs to go. I'm wondering if you have any specific advice for how outreach workers, like in their role, can navigate situations when clients are feeling unwilling or unable to accept help for this urgent need.
It's definitely an issue we see often in our veteran services, and it can be especially tough for staff who care deeply about those that we serve. When a veteran refuses food support, it's rarely just about the food. It often is tied to pride, as you mentioned, military culture, past experiences with other organizations and institutions, or just a strong value of independence. So for outreach workers, what we talk to our team about and what I would offer are a few key approaches. First, leading with respect and autonomy. Many of our veterans value self-reliance and don't want to feel like a charity case. Instead, we encourage our team to offer help by trying to reframe it as a resource that they've earned through their service. So for example, we'd say like, we have some food resources available for veterans. I'd like to make sure you get access to what you've already earned. Just changing the language there, we found makes a difference sometimes. And then also normalizing the need, reminding them that many veterans and families are using these supports right now due to the high cost of living. Sometimes simply hearing that other veterans are doing the same removes that stigma that's associated with receiving support. And then we talked about trust, building that trust. I can't say it enough, building that trust through consistency. A no today from that veteran or the family doesn't mean never. And so continue checking in, even if it's briefly, and just showing that we're committed, we're connected, and showing that reliability often helps to build the trust, and then openness to support will follow after that. We also encourage to offer choice and control. So giving options, grocery delivery versus pantry pickup, hot meals versus shelf-stable items, or gift cards instead of prepackaged bags. Just allowing the veteran to choose helps to maintain a sense of control. And we mentioned peer connection. Using that peer connection is really important whenever possible. Connecting veterans to other veterans who have used the same service. Sometimes just hearing from a peer who understands military culture and have lived it can break down those barriers, and make acceptance feel safer. And then finally, I'd say like acknowledge their strength, recognize the resilience while gently reframing the support as another tool for their stability. So example would be like saying to them, you've carried a lot on your own. This is just one way to take a bit off your plate. So we're just we're acknowledging the strength that they have and just trying to offer some support. So at the core, it's all about trust, respect, and shared purpose. Our veterans respond best when support feels earned, dignified and mission driven rather than charitable. And our consistency and showing up helps to make sure that message really lands over time.
Gosh, I love that phrasing of "you've carried a lot already." That's really great. Does anyone else want to add in here?
Yeah, absolutely echo everything Angela said. And, especially with the peer-to-peer piece, I know we've been able to say, hey, you accepting this support is giving permission to your neighbors to also accept this support. And so you're doing it for you and your family, and you're also doing it for everyone. And sometimes I'll also level with folks and be like, hey, if you don't take it, we're going to have to stop getting it, right? And so help us feed everyone. But a huge thing that we do at Bastion that has made such a difference is having almost everyone who runs all the aspects of the food program, whether it's the pantry or the cooking or the food distribution, they are members of the community who are also receiving those benefits. So the people who are distributing the pantry food are also packing their own pantry bag when they leave to go home. And it's really built in as an expectation of being part of the community. Like, hey, we break bread together. We make sure everybody's fed. Certainly, there's always going to be a little bit of a tension when you have to demonstrate impact and have metrics, but you also want to be low barrier, low stigma, not be means testing, these kinds of things. And I think we've been able to be pretty frank with our community members about what it takes to keep these resources going, and building in that assumption that part of what we do here as a community is we eat, we meet our basic needs together. And then also, trust was mentioned a lot. The trust with the staff members, even the ones who aren't actually involved directly in the food program, our social workers, being able to get permission from a resident to let us go to them about a food need, or our operations coordinator and Air Force veteran, Sharice Harper, who was actually a resident in our community a decade ago, and came full circle about a year ago to join the team as a staff member. She really is who helms the pantry program at this point. And not only has she now recruited a good half dozen or more of the residents to be the volunteers who run the food pantry, she's cultivated personal relationships and rapport so that people are disclosing really honest things about what they need and what's going on with their families in a way that she can anonymously tell me, and I can use that information to continue to inform how we do things. So I think, the biggest two things for us are incorporating the recipients in the provision of the resources, and just setting a baseline expectation always that the assumption is you should be receiving this. So if you're not receiving it, I'm gonna reach out and ask, hey, I didn't see you come by any meals this week and you didn't grab your pantry bag. What's up? Can I bring it to you? We incorporated some of the teens on site who needed an after school activity to go deliver to doors for our less mobile residents. And that gave them something positive to do as well. But yeah, it's certainly an ongoing thing always.
I think that's a great idea to incorporate people. And it's so true. If you just say, like, if you don't want if you don't take any of this, if you don't take any of this, it's going to be harder for us to continue to be able to offer it. I think it's a great point. I don't know if I've heard someone say that before. I'm going to shift a little bit to talking about kind of the kind of food that you offer. Your programs all are feeding diverse populations. How do you provide food that satisfies all of those different needs that different people have? Shannon, I'd love to hear a bit from your perspective of supporting military families.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. So it's changed, right? And it's evolved. And when we did the food distribution events, in a lot of cases, you're working with what you have there, what you can get donated. And so, we did what we could in that moment. And as we have grown and evolved, some of the work that we do is really focused on helping people free up their budget so that they have the money that they need to buy the groceries that they choose to buy for themselves and their families. And so we know a move is a pain point. If we can provide families with all the things they have to replace every time that they move. So think your laundry detergent, your dishwasher detergent, everything in your pantry. Well, then that frees up $150 in your budget so that you can choose the food that you want to feed your family. But also, as part of it, data is really important for us, and not just tracking like the outputs as far as the meals served, but also some of the deeper things. And so when we're delivering support, we also screen for food insecurity. And for that program that's focused on moves, if they are food insecure, it turns on our partnership with Instacart, and they get 3 months of groceries through Instacart's Fresh Funds program. Again, dignity. There are a lot of considerations that people have, both religious, dietary, all the things in choosing what they, put in their bodies. And so that's something that's very important to us. Now, the flip side, when we're in this rapid response, emergency response phase that we're in right now, as it relates to shutdown support, it is about shelf-stable items that we can pack efficiently and effectively in a box that can be delivered widely, right? But as part of that, we also know that there are unique dietary needs, even things like baby formula. Like if WIC, isn't available, what are, some of those younger families doing? We're not going to put baby formula in every box because not everyone needs that. And so that commissary, in this case, gift card that's going in those boxes allows people to purchase the things that they need that might be unique to their family. But one of the things that's been really powerful for us is they're getting quite a bit of food, but also they're supplementing that with what they already had in their pantry. And so they've been able to stretch this for quite a while, which is great. And one of the things that's also been, frankly, really humbling is we've had families say to us, like, what do I do? Like, how can I help pay this back? How can I pay this forward? And what we're seeing is for some people who may have gotten paid and who did get the support, they're giving it to other people in their community who didn't get paid, especially that Garden Reserve contingent. And so it's powerful, it's humbling, and I think it really gets at that, leave no person behind mentality that the military and veteran community really do embrace. But client choice is really important. Dignity is really important. And just being aware of who you're serving. If you're serving a population that might not have dental visits as frequently, well, you need to be careful about putting things in there that are easy to chew and digest. It's just like little considerations like that can go a long way, not only in helping them get food in their stomach, but also feeling seen and understood by the people who are providing them that additional support.
Allison, I think Bastion has done some adapting and education around this kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially with other programming and especially our occupational therapy supports, there's a lot of focus on improving health, in longing everyone's lives by the choices they're making. And so when we first started food pantry distribution years ago, we were kind of doing a hard, no sugary stuff rule. Everything was very, very healthy. And there was pretty swift feedback from some of our residents that like, hey, that's great. And that's nice. That's not what we really eat, or that's not what my kids like, and we had to take a beat and be like, of course. And so one thing that we've done ever since, at least once each year, sometimes twice each year, is just a community survey about what foods people want, what foods people need, what foods they're having struggles affording. And then we also know from serving these folks and from asking them on the survey as well, what kind of health conditions they may be dealing with that would impact what they can or should eat. And so we've slowly over time tried to find a balance of things that appeal to all members of the family, that the kids in our community will eat, offering recipes to incorporate maybe some ingredients that they're less familiar with. Our chefs sometimes will host cooking classes or educational sessions about a new type of food. But ultimately, we're pretty transparent about, hey, we're trying to not be serving a ton of sugar or a ton of sodium for the sake of everyone, but also being responsive to what the community members say works for them, and also including in our pantry offerings If we have vegan community members or vegetarian community members or any number of dietary restrictions, that they can still go through those offerings and have a full bag when they leave and not feel like they're missing out on those resources because they can't or don't eat X, Y, or Z.
I'm watching the clock. We are getting closer to the end of the hour, so I'm actually going to pause to say to the audience, I would love it if you all would ask a few more questions in the Q&A. It's the box at the bottom of your screen. I think we'll have some time for our panelists to get to them. If they don't, we will send out their responses after, but we do love questions. I think I have two more things I want to bring to our panelists. The first is bringing it back to the staff and thinking about how frontline staff are impacted in all of this. How are they coping? The needs in our communities are overwhelming. The need for staff to be stepping up during this time is demanding in more ways than one. How are you preventing or addressing burnout from your staff on the front lines? I'll pass it to anyone who wants to share.
I can jump in. So for us, when we saw the shutdown coming, right, and when it hit day one, I called a meeting with our senior staff, and I wanted to make sure that we had the support of every part of the organization, because this type of support and this type of surge, it's not just one or two people. It really does, especially for like a mid-sized organization. It impacts everybody. Everybody feels it in some way, shape, or form, be it the finance person who is, paying for the groceries that are going out, or, helping code, different donations that are coming in. And so once we had that support, and the leadership team felt this was the right thing to do, it was also tying this back to our mission and our 10-year vision, and really asking ourselves the question of, are we making sure that we're avoiding mission creep? Are we fulfilling who we say we're going to be to our community right now? And for us, part of it is being agile and responsive to what the data are showing families need. And so in that case, for us, it became a situation of, okay, how can we put our heads on this pillow at night without doing everything we possibly can to help people during this really remarkable time? And so we've leaned in. MFAN is not a case management organization, but we are getting hundreds of emails daily. When am I going to get my box of food? Are you going to be able to reopen the applications? And that weighs on people when you're reading those. And of course, you want to help everyone that you possibly can. And so it's us realizing that we are doing a lot, and we are leaning in and doing everything that we possibly can, and reminding the staff and having those check-ins with folks to make sure that they're okay too, and that they're filling their cup first. It's the safety mask for yourself before you put the safety mask on other people. And for us as an organization, a lot of our employees are military connected, and so they're facing the same struggles that the people we serve are facing. And so it's complicated. As an organization, for us, it's part of, this going into it, that we are going to be responsive and agile when an issue like this comes up. And so I think that for any leader in any organization, it's really asking yourself those hard questions, ensuring that you're within the lines and the scope of your mission, but then, really remembering at the end of the day, what is this about? This is about serving people. And for me personally, it's, one person served is one more than might not have been served had we not leaned in. And that's really what I've been trying to help the team understand in a really difficult and stressful point in time.
Such an important question. And it's one that really speaks to the sustainability of this work. The need right now is immense. Full stop. It's immense. And our frontline staff are showing up every single day with compassion, with professionalism, and some of the most challenging circumstances. I mentioned that we mainly provide homeless resource services and food security to individuals. So here at Inside Housing, we take a trauma-informed and values-driven approach to supporting our teams. The same lens we use with our participants, we apply internally. That means creating this environment grounded in safety, in trust, and respect, and in connection. We talk openly about burnout and compassion fatigue, and we treat self-care not as a luxury, but as a core competency of this work. We've built in regular reflective supervision, mental health holidays, access to mental health resources, and dedicated time for staff to debrief after critical incidents, including bringing in a licensed therapist for group debrief sessions that can really talk to the team and get them to open up and really discuss what they're going through and how they're feeling. But equally important, we focus on community purpose, community and purpose, because people need to have that connection to the work that we're doing, and celebrating small victories and reinforcing that each person's role contributes to housing and stability for our participants. We really focus on reminding our team that they are a part of this something larger, this bigger picture than the immediate crises in front of them. Sometimes taking that larger lens helps with the overall perspective. So in short, we care about our staff the way we ask them to care about our participants. And that is with empathy, with consistency, and with respect. Sustaining this work, it really requires us to invest just as intentionally in the people that are doing the work as those that we are serving. So it's really important to focus on the team.
I echo both what Shannon and Angela said. We do the same. And then during this crisis, the biggest thing that we have done is transparency and communication of, we have 9 federal grants plus all the other grants. And, when you're dealing with grants, and something like this, you have to show the folks who are supporting you that you do have a strong agency that is going to work through this. And so by having the transparency of understanding how our donors feel, how the VA grants are working, which ones that we still had access to, which ones that we didn't, how that affected their job, like both Angela and Shannon were saying, if they can't help somebody because they're not getting reimbursed or something from the grant. So far, we're good. We haven't had that problem. But when they have the peace of mind that they can still help the veteran right now, we're good. And but it does take everything that they both said, with the respect and with the transparency that they know what we know, so that we can be one cohesive group.
I'm going to pivot really quickly to some of our audience questions. Thank you to everyone who shared some. I love this one. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but I think it comes up often enough. It bears delving into. Someone asked, what are your thoughts on offering the veteran to volunteer with the organization if they ask, how can I repay this? Or if they insist that they want to support the organization? How do you handle that?
I think, as you already heard from me, for us, at least in our small setting, yes. It helps us. It helps them in a number of ways. We know sense of purpose is such a huge thing for so many veterans, and finding it again, especially if they're dealing with disabilities that have taken them out of the traditional workforce. And it actually, for us, is a big part of the prior question as well, with staff, or trying to mitigate staff burnout, really being able to take all the moving parts of, for us specifically, our pantry operation, and rather than trying to have one staff member have to do all of that, be able to say, okay, well, we have these 8 veterans who want to give back, who want to help. We can chunk out, okay, this person will always be who divvies up bulk things into Ziplocs, and being able to give a bunch of people responsibilities so that our staff are having their time a little bit more protected, and those veterans who want to feel like they're giving something because they're getting something have a tangible way to contribute very directly.
We actually have in a situation where we had a veteran who wanted to do exactly that, volunteer and be a supportive. And absolutely, it's a great way, like you said, to stay connected and have that purpose. I will say it's important to just monitor it, because we want to make sure we're not taking advantage. And so with this situation in particular that we've had, we ended up moving that person to staff. Once he was housed and doing his own thing, we're like, because he kept coming back to wanting to continue to volunteer, but it's like, you're doing so much work, incredible work. We're going to put you on payroll because you deserve it. And we want to make sure that we're not abusing or taking advantage. I know that's never the intention, but just keep that in mind when you are allowing that to, is this person needing to actually be on staff? Can you actually convert them over to staff? And helps with sustainability as well.
100%. And actually, I think our standard for that is typically, okay, if this volunteer decided today they're never volunteering again, would a bunch of things fall apart or not work? And that is why we, our van driver, for instance, who does the pantry food pickups, who is a resident, he is on payroll. Because if the van suddenly isn't driving, the pantry is not happening. But yeah, absolutely agree.
I agree too. We have had a couple times just to monitor in the beginning because they're so grateful, they're so happy, and they're like, I want to give. And again, what's really important to us is the wraparound services, the why of why they are with us. And we have to say, yes, we want you to participate. We want you to volunteer, but not yet. Let's let you finish. Let's let you get established in your job. Let's let your family get settled. Then let's redirect and see what you guys can do to help, because they want to like just jump in really fast and you're like, no, not yet. And we have had the same. We've had people who graduated programs who are on staff. We actually had a graduate of our transitional housing program on our board. So yeah, we're yes.
I love the yes and not yet. That's like the oxygen mask thing. That's really cool. In our one final minute together, I want to invite each panelist to just give us your 10-second lightning, most important thought that you want to make sure everyone takes with them when they leave.
Partnerships. We can all do more when we're working together. And so don't be afraid to remove the ego from all of it and focus on how you can meet the need. And for us, that's really in partnerships. But thank you for having me today.
I'll go next. To continue engaging in open communication and collaboration within your team. For us, with such a diverse staff, each member brings unique connections and resources to the table, creating a network that expands our collective reach. Resources don't last forever, and although it can be time-consuming to make calls and verify resources, the effort is always worthwhile when we find the right support for a veteran in need. And I appreciate you having me as well.
I would say really ask the people you're trying to serve what they want and need, and really listen to what their answers are. And just because you've done, or people have done something one way, doesn't mean it has to be how it keeps being done. Our programs have had to evolve every year, and it's always been to the betterment of the outcomes of the people we serve.
Such a great way to close. At the end of the day, it really comes down to staying connected to this work and to the people behind it. Every single meal served, every outreach conversation we have, every small act of kindness, it truly makes a difference for someone trying to find their footing. So at Inside Housing, we've learned that meaningful change doesn't come from a single act of charity. It comes from showing up consistently, with dignity, with compassion, and with heart. Behind every single data point or policy discussion is a person, someone's parent, a sibling, a neighbor. So simply trying to find stability. And for veterans and others facing homelessness or food insecurity, that stability often starts with connection and trust. So my encouragement to everyone listening is keep showing up, whether that's through partnerships and advocacy, volunteering, or simply sharing resources. It all adds up. And when we keep showing up together, we move our community and our veterans closer to safety and stability and home. And really appreciate all of the panelists here, and you, Abby, thank you very much.
This was really lovely. I'm so grateful that I got to be a part of it. Thank you, Terry, Allison, Angela, and Shannon, and everybody who attended the webinar, especially everybody who sent in questions. We will get you answers over via email. We'll also be sending out the link to this recording, some of the resources that people mentioned too. And I encourage you to share this with your network. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.